Hi, Gary.
Hi Felix, how we doing?
I'm very good.
Awesome.
Saving the world one step at a time.
Brilliant.
So, let's tell people a bit about what we do. So, what is it actually that we do, and what has hemp to do with that?
Yeah, the thing is that we need to remove significant amounts of carbon from the air or we're in big trouble with the climate. So people have tried many things, including forestry, which just takes a long time and it can't really be measured, and direct air capture, which is these huge machines that suck carbon from the air.
Yeah,
It's
they're a
crazy.
bit of a joke, like.
It's crazy, and when you measure in all the emissions
Mm,
across the supply chain of direct air capture machines, their actual carbon gain
yeah.
is nominal at best. So we
Imagine
decided,
the resources going into that. Like, I mean, not just the electricity they consume, but even just getting them built on site. It's ridiculous.
yeah. So then the X Prize Carbon Removal Contest was announced a couple of years ago as the biggest competition in human history, trying to solve the biggest problem in human history, which is
Yeah.
removing vast amounts of carbon. So when that was released, it was looking for a scalable mechanism that would both remove CO2 and then permanently sequester that
Uh-huh.
carbon for over 100 years. I knew that hemp was this incredible plant, nature's most effective plant at removing CO2 very, very quickly. I also knew that hempcrete was this remarkable construction material made from the hemp carbon fiber, which can make buildings and infrastructure that would last hundreds of years. So,
Yeah.
bringing those two processes together, I decided to launch Tao Climate because hemp is the answer. And then we met very soon after that. And
Yeah.
here we are blazing a trail
Yeah.
today.
It was actually some of the viewers might know, but it was actually great the way we met. I lived in Ireland at the time. I'm originally from Germany, and it was a very dark, drizzly day. And I was listening to the radio, and this is where you had your appearance with the radio star Jennifer Zamparelli. Would you like to
Yes.
tell us about that a bit?
Yeah, Jennifer is wonderful. She's
Yeah.
Ireland's top media star, and she was supporting startup businesses on her radio slot. So I got the opportunity to pitch. I think it was 3 minutes or something,
In short.
which is not a lot of time, but it worked. So meeting you was the most important outcome from that, but also just spreading the message. And when people really understand and get what we're doing, they really get it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, the more people we can reach with the fact that this is not a hopeless situation,
No.
there is hope. Hemp is hope, and Tau means the way. So Tau
Mhm.
Climate is all about showing people the way to a better
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And there's too many heads being buried in sand, I suppose. And there's too many people just waiting for that one technology breakthrough.
Yeah,
We see
it's
it
not going to
in
happen, Felix.
no, no, no. We
Nature,
see it.
nature is the thing. Nature will save us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially like we both have a background in aviation. That's why we have aviation as our core focus for Tau Climate to decarbonize. And what I find interesting, even though aviation is such a driver for innovation, it falls very flat when it comes to decarbonizing. It
Yes.
relies on fossil fuels, which is essentially dead dinosaurs. That isn't very innovative. And even when you look at potential solutions there, hydrogen being one. This is years away.
Heck,
So this is at least 20 years away. We certainly don't have that time.
we don't.
So we literally need a mechanism apart from the carbon removal to essentially decarbonize the aviation industry at scale and to bridge the gap between the fossil fuel past and a potential hydrogen future or whatever new technologies will be developed. But
Yes.
we can't be buying more time, and this
Yeah.
is the core drive of what we do.
Yeah, so we have a two-step solution for aviation,
Mhm.
which is really interesting. Right now, we want people to be able to remove their carbon footprint from when they fly and to do that in a science-based, proven, measurable way. And then we can also work to decarbonize aviation operations at scale. So
Uh-huh.
major airlines, for example, they have carbon footprints measured in the millions of tons per
Uh-huh.
year. So we can actually scale up our operation to remove vast quantities of CO2. We can get to megaton scale quite quickly. We're at kiloton scale at the moment. And then the next phase is enabling the supply of hemp biomass created
Mm.
sustainable aviation fuel. So what that does is it's actually removing CO2 from the air and then using that carbon to create fuel. So instead of, digging up fossil fuels and leaving a net negative
Mm.
effect in terms of carbon, we're actually recycling the carbon that's in the air, and it has up to 80% emissions reduction effect. This is using current aircraft, current engines, current
Yeah.
infrastructure. So it's literally the most important
Mm.
pathway to decarbonizing aviation.
And something that I find personally so exciting about the potential of hemp SAF is it would be fully in line with the Refuel EU regulations, and especially taking into consideration that you can literally grow hemp everywhere around the world. It would be locally accessible around the world. So you could grow it near the airport, drastically reducing the need for complex infrastructure and logistics to get the fuel from where it was created to where it's being used. So
Yes, it's
this
a
further
no-brainer.
reduces the carbon emissions.
You're absolutely right. So our vision really is that the airports of the near future will have hemp growing in the
Mhm.
green spaces around the runways and the infrastructure. So what that means is that the hemp is literally removing the airport's operational carbon footprint essentially in
Mhm.
real time. And then that carbon can be used in two ways. One is to build new airport infrastructure from hempcrete, a biomaterial. We know airports have an endless need to
Yeah.
build new infrastructure. So this is a way for them to build infrastructure that's very sustainable
Mhm.
and creates a wonderful space for people to be. And then the other part of the biomass can be diverted into SAF production,
Mm.
sustainable aviation fuel. So literally, can you imagine an airport being able to grow its own fuel on site and then
Yeah.
sell that to airlines?
And it's funny because it sounds so futuristic and
Mm.
so out of proportion, but we'll be looking back at the way we used to do things of drilling holes somewhere in the Middle East and then getting a ship to drive or to literally ship the oil around the world
Yeah,
to an airport for me to get from A to B. It's ridiculous when you
it's
think about it.
crazy.
Yeah.
And that actually reminds me, it's a fairly startling statistic. When we look at all the carbon emissions globally
Mm.
from fossil fuels, oil and gas primarily, 40% of the fossil fuel carbon footprint is created from processing and transporting the fuel.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous
Yeah.
the amount of hidden emissions
Mhm.
that exist in the world. And people need to understand that it's more than the emissions that come from your plane or from your car when
Exactly.
you use the petrol. It has this big, long trail of toxic
Mm.
emissions going all the way back to the source.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about hemp again, what's your favorite fact about hemp?
I think my favorite fact is the fact that it was humanity's first cultivated crop.
Mm.
So, dating back to 10,000 BC in Asia, hemp was grown and cultivated to make textile
Mhm.
materials, and it's nature's strongest fiber. So, it's remarkably efficient at
Mhm.
producing textiles. And still, in many parts of the world, it is being used for textiles to this day. For
Yeah.
example, in China, which is the world's biggest grower of industrial hemp, the vast majority of their output is used for textile production. And there are many European and US clothing brands and footwear brands now seeing that hemp is actually the solution
Mhm.
to future textile requirements. So it's really come full circle.
That is
Yeah,
really interesting,
yeah.
especially when you take into consideration two things. First of all, France would be the second biggest hemp producer after China. Obviously, they have phenomenal needs for their domestic and international fashion industry. So the likes of Dior and so on, they are fully on the hemp train.
Yes.
And when you look at the competing kind of source material, which would be cotton,
Mm.
this is considered one of the most dirtiest plants in the world, because it needs so many herbicides and pesticides,
Yes.
and it just consumes so much water that would be rare in most parts of the earth. And that brings me to another fact that I love about hemp, because it just doesn't need that. It needs very little water. It needs no pesticides, no herbicides. So it
Yeah.
is per default, it is a very ecological product. And
Yes, and of course, the co-benefits of hemp are quite remarkable.
mm,
So imagine growing hemp instead of cotton. Okay,
mm,
as you mentioned, it requires about 10% of the water that cotton does. Okay, so
yeah.
that's a win immediately. You're
Mhm,
not polluting the environment with all your poisons, your herbicides and pesticides. That's another win. The hemp taproot goes really deep into the
mm,
soil. So it actually rejuvenates the soil and the soil biome, which is all the living organisms in the soil upon which we depend for life. It helps them. And get this, it even helps the pollinators, Felix,
yeah.
by providing pollen late into the season. Bees and other
And
pollinators
and and and
are helped to survive by hemp.
exactly, we all know how important they are. I mean, if they're gone, we're gone.
Everyone is gone. Yes, absolutely.
It's one of my favorite quotes by Albert Einstein,
Yes.
right? If the bees are gone, we'll be fulling 5 years afterwards, or
I
what
think it might be
exactly?
4 years even,
It
Felix.
might be even
Yes.
shorter than that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So hemp really is amazing when you think about it, that it's essentially a CO2 vacuum cleaner.
Mm.
It pulls out CO2 while giving us oxygen to breathe. And it also enables us to build houses from it, and clothe ourselves, and all these amazing
Yeah.
outputs. So it's beneficial from so many angles of
Yeah.
which you might look at it.
Felix, there's another couple of gains from building housing and infrastructure from hempcrete, which is the material that's
Mm,
made from the hemp carbon fiber when mixed with lime and water.
mm,
Number one, because hempcrete does not require cement,
mm,
it's potentially displacing significant carbon emissions. The global cement industry is responsible for about 8% of
mm.
global emissions, which is
That's
shocking.
fast.
That's like three times more than aviation. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous the amount of CO2
yeah.
produced by cement and concrete. And then the other gain is that when infrastructure housing is built from hempcrete, through the process of carbonation, it continues to absorb CO2 from
Mm,
the air across its lifespan of hundreds of years, essentially using CO2 in the air to make itself even
mm.
stronger. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's such a positive thing.
It is, and something that I like to tell people is that before I met you, I obviously am an aviation expert. I worked in the industry. I love the industry, as so do you. But one thing that struck me is that as I care about the environment, I knew nothing about hemp. I thought it was this hippie plant. I didn't know, was it a drug? Was it not a drug? So there's all these question marks around this. Why might that be? Like, why is it such an important crop, which has essentially been forgotten about, and it's been put into this very dark corner, you might call it?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation.
Mm,
We know that hemp was banned in the US in 1937, essentially at the requirement of the fossil fuel industry and
yeah.
also the forestry industry, because hemp was doing everything that fossil fuels wanted to do,
Hmm.
from fuel to fabrics.
While
So it was,
being decentralized, which they didn't really like.
of course. America went from the past, where during the revolutionary period,
Mm.
everyone was required by law to grow hemp because it
Mm.
was so important in terms of the
There was
independence efforts.
Yeah, there was even a time when there was hemp being harvested, and a depiction of that was on the €10, the $10 note, I should say.
That's correct. Yes,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
crazy.
It's remarkable. So it went from being this essential crop in so many ways
Mm,
to being demonized. Why? Because the fossil fuel industry wanted it out of the way. So
yeah,
they succeeded in that. But between
big time.
1937 and 2018 in the US, hemp was essentially banned. What
Yeah.
happened in that intervening period? Well, the fossil fuel industry ruled the roost, and now
Mm.
they've essentially destroyed the world, and we're in a very precarious
Mm.
situation. So back in 2018, President Trump, in his first term, reclassified hemp as part of the Farm Bill, enabling the growing of hemp without fear of legal problems in the US. So there have
Mm.
been some issues around CBD bubbles, for example, that have
Yeah.
affected some hemp growers in the US. We want to reestablish hemp as
Mm.
something that not only removes vast amounts of CO2, but its outputs, its offtakes can be used then to literally build a better world.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. So we feel that hemp is just getting started once more.
Yeah, and we like one core driver behind our mission at Tao Climate is to really grow the hemp industry globally, sustainably. So the sustainable growth, no
Yes,
bubbles, but consistent growth in the industry. And countries like China and France and so on, they really prove that there is the demand once there is the supply. And
yes,
absolutely. And something interesting that I thought after starting my research, after hearing about him from you for the first time, and I sort of felt like I've been to the mountaintop because that really seemed to be the solution to everything. I was
yes,
kind of thinking, maybe also because I'm German, I was like, where's the catch? Like, where is, like, wherever there's light, there's and I'm very happy to say that until today, I didn't really find anything that would make hemp look bad, or is any negative aspect about it. Is there
yes.
anything you might know about that I don't?
No, I think it's just any confusion
Mm,
about hemp being completely distinct from the cannabis plant, which is
right.
completely different juices. So, and I believe that a key cause of this confusion around hemp has been directly created by the
Mm,
fossil fuel industry and those very wealthy and powerful forces that don't
mm,
want to see a nature-based solution come in and displace all
that's
their
right.
high carbon emissions activities,
Mm,
because it can actually do everything that fossil fuels can do. This is
yeah,
quite remarkable. So when you think about plastic waste, for example,
big
we
problem.
could
Like,
we could drown in plastic.
yeah,
These microparticles in our bodies, we have no idea what the effects of this will be, especially
there's
this.
literally no long term studies on it
We're,
because it's
we're
such
the
a
guinea
relatively new
pigs.
problem.
We're the guinea pigs, Felix, in real time. And once microplastics get into your cells, who
Mm,
knows what kind of carnage could ensue? So that's a real problem. But by making hemp bioplastic to replace the fossil fuel based plastics we see and use every day, then
yeah.
you're creating a biodegradable, nature based plastic product that can do everything that fossil fuel based plastic can do.
I still wouldn't encourage anyone to throw a hemp plastic bottle out into the environment, but at
Yeah,
least the environmental damage isn't anywhere near where it would be if it was a
of
fossil fuel
course, it
plastic.
disappear rapidly, but how you would dispose of it would be into your organic waste bin.
Mm,
And it just, because it's a biological material, it just
mm,
degrades along with everything else. And
mm,
if a hemp bioplastic bottle did get into the ocean, for example, the fish could literally eat it.
mm. Yeah, that's amazing. Imagine walking down the beach and the only thing you find is seashells and no more
Yes,
bottle caps and
I
whatever
know.
else might be just
That is achievable. It is
yeah,
achievable, and again, it's all about enabling massive supply of these bioplastic materials. And
yeah.
once that supply is there, the big players, the big producers of
Mm,
plastic bottles will come on board. And it reminds me of an interesting fact. Bottled water companies don't produce water, they
no.
just produce plastic bottles.
Yeah.
And when you look at an industry from a different perspective, it's actually quite shocking. Also, look how rapidly we're affecting the environment. You
Yeah.
could probably say maybe 100, 150 years since
Yeah.
plastic and oil really got going. And
Yeah.
we've made such an impact in such a short period of time. Nature typically absorbs so much of the CO2 that we
Mm,
emit, whether that be plants and other biomass on land, the rocks themselves through carbonation, and
Right.
then the oceans, including algae and plankton.
Mm.
They do all the heavy lifting for us. They're
Yeah.
taking billions of tons of CO2 from the air every year.
Yeah.
But there is a gap, and the UN actually has defined this gap. They call it the UN emissions gap. That's the gap between what the natural world
Mm.
removes in terms of CO2 emissions per year and the amount that we're creating through burning fossil fuels. So
Right.
that gap is currently around 23 billion tons a year, which
That's a
is,
lot.
it is a lot,
It's very
but
difficult to visualize
it
that,
is.
but
It's
it's just enough to say, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, once you get into big numbers, I think our brains go fuzzy and we can't really imagine
It's
it.
astronomical.
Yeah, but there is one way that we can imagine a solution, and
Yeah.
that if you look at all the land in the world that's currently being used for dairy and livestock production, which we know is not great for climate anyway, but
Mm.
that's a lot of land. If just 25% of that dairy and livestock land was instead used to grow hemp around the world, then we would literally close that emissions gap and we would
Yeah.
stop climate change.
Yeah.
So, when you put it into that kind of context, it's actually something that's very much achievable.
Exactly, and we're lucky we got that validated by the United Nations, and it's interesting when we tell people, we go out in the world and we tell people, yeah, it's our mission to actually stop climate change.
Yes.
People react like, yeah, like what sort of dreamers are you? But then
Yeah.
we actually provide them with the facts, and we
Yeah.
provide them with the knowledge that we gained, and we like to pass it on.
Yeah.
It becomes a whole different conversation immediately. And
Yes.
I think one of the keys to actually achieve the amount of hemp production around the world is, as you said, the supply shortage is a problem. And this is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we set up Tao Climate, by monetizing the carbon gains, and scientifically verifying all of this, we can literally subsidize the industry on a global scale, independent from politics or independent from big other lobbies that try to see it gone again, and to really also then close the knowledge gap. Like once you tell people about hemp and tell people about the benefits and the impact it can have, or the multiple impacts, both like economic impact, social impact, environmental impact. It's really about closing this knowledge gap. And
Mm.
I think that the two of us are incredibly happy that we are actually partnering with Google on this. I mean, Google sort of being the biggest um, knowledge platform, or how would I call it?
Yes.
Once people seek knowledge, they'll get it there. It's very interesting that we partner with them.
Yes, so we're proud members of the Google Startups for Sustainable Development program, which is
Yeah.
remarkable. So we have access to Google experts to help us solve business problems. Also, we work with Google to pitch to investors. It's
Mm.
quite amazing. And what it is it's all about supporting startups that want to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So by 2030, we need to make progress as a planet, as a society,
Yeah.
on all these goals. So our main focus is on Goal 13, climate action. We also have multiple other impacts on goals, including sustainable
Mm.
infrastructure and communities. But by working with Google to a specific target and a goal date of 2030, that really helps us to focus on what really matters in what we're doing. So we have to, for example, report our impacts to Google on a yearly basis, and we'll do that all the way to 2030.
Mm.
And so the vision is that then this whole ecosystem of high potential, high energy startups in the Google Startups for Sustainable Development
Mm.
program will be able to deliver measured, significant impacts against the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we're
Yeah.
really excited about that. And, the journey continues, and we
Yeah.
hope to have significant progress.
Something that we mentioned is we are a top 100 carbon removal company awarded by X Prize. So they really validated our methodology. So it's all the science that we use has all been independently validated and verified. On the technology side of things, we're working together with Google. Now coming to the verification of things. So how do we actually verify the carbon emissions that we remove with our partners? And I'm very proud to say that we're actually working together with the European Space Agency to be using satellite technology, satellite imaging to monitor the impacts in real time. Just tell us something about that, Gary.
Yeah, there's been so much greenwashing around
Yeah.
carbon in recent years. It's actually
We
shocking.
want to abolish this. Like we want to
We
do
do.
two things:
Yeah.
abolish greenwashing and stop climate change. That's really
Yes.
the goal.
So it's actually shocking what
Yeah.
some companies have gotten away with in terms of confusing people about carbon
Mm.
and also carbon solutions, which are just a joke in many cases. So our
Yeah.
vision really is to solve that problem around carbon removal using technology and science. So we're
Uh-huh.
working with some of the most respected technology companies in the world and organizations, as you've mentioned, but also our focus is deeply science based. So
Yeah.
we want people to have trust in our transparent communication of the activities that we're partnering on to remove and sequester carbon. So it's our vision that greenwashing can be solved by giving people something that they can trust,
Uh-huh.
science based, data driven, technology enabled. Here are the facts of your carbon footprint, and here are the facts of what action you've taken to remove that CO2 from the air and permanently sequester it. So, if we can solve that problem around restoring trust in carbon
Mm.
removal, I think we open up so many other opportunities for other companies,
That's
governments,
right.
organizations to really be able to tackle climate change head on. It's very
Mhm.
exciting. And,
Yeah.
technology, it can either kill us or save us. We're going with the save us.
Yeah, we're standing at that pathway at the moment.
We're at that junction, aren't we? So it's very interesting that with the growth of AI as well as cloud computing in general, that requires vast amounts of data centers.
Mm.
So these are being built all over the world. Here in Ireland, there are many, many large data
Yeah.
centers. And these are mostly powered from the fossil fuel grid. So they're using potentially like 200 megawatts of power and they're always on
Mm.
24/7. It's huge, the carbon
Yeah.
footprint that some of these data centers are responsible for. So with more and more data centers being built for AI processing, we could be in serious danger
Yeah.
here. So unless carbon removal goes hand in hand with these data centers, we'll be in big trouble. So our goal really is to use AI as a tool that helps us to optimize our carbon removal and also helps to communicate the science and the trust around what we're doing. So, but you're right, it's a very tricky time, Felix,
It
and
is.
people need to be aware of this. If we go down the wrong path without
Mhm.
having carbon removal as an integral part of that path, we could be in very big trouble very quickly. Be
As
sure to
always.
join us the next time when we'll be sorting out the meaning of life.
Absolutely. And we think big. That's us.
Mhm.
If you like what we do, if you want to support us, share this with your friends, with your colleagues, with your family. Share it all over the world because we're all in this together and we can all solve that together and with a bit of hemp, right?
Amazing.
Bye.